Shortly after the arrival of Tiberium, the Brotherhood of Nod rose to prominence as a new power on the world stage. In response, the United Nations formed the Global Defense Initiative to counter the Brotherhood and its leader, Kane. Both sides would eventually face off against each other during the First Tiberium War, and both would be reliant on their air forces to transport troops and supplies, as well as engage each other in air-to-air and air-to-ground combat operations. Thanks to the Brotherhood of Nod's secret connections with various defense contractors, they were able to field a formidable air force using some of the same aircraft that GDI used. The Brotherhood used CH-47 Chinooks and CH-46 Sea Knights as their primary transport helicopters. These helicopters would typically be seen deploying both infantry and vehicular reinforcements onto the battlefield. Whereas the Chinooks were unarmed, the Sea Knights could often be seen with two miniguns, one on each side of the helicopter, right behind the cockpit. Both helicopters were highly vulnerable to anti-air weapons. Chinooks that took damage could land on a service depot and receive repairs. Regarding transport planes, the Brotherhood made heavy use of the C-17 Globemaster. Nod commanders would typically establish an airfield at their bases in order to bring in supplies and equipment, as well as call in a variety of vehicular units. The C-17 would approach the runway and perform a low-altitude parachute extraction system, or LAPES. LAPES are done 2 to 10 feet above the ground, at a speed of roughly 130 knots, or 150 miles per hour. This airlift delivery method allowed the C-17 to drop off vehicles without landing the plane on the airstrip, but this maneuver leaves little room for error by the pilots performing it. The C-130 also saw extensive use in the Brotherhood's air force. The plane would airdrop vehicles at airfields just like the C-17s, though it would also be used to paradrop Nod infantry reinforcements onto the battlefield. During the events of Command & Conquer Renegade, one can see a Brotherhood plane, simply called the Personal Transport Plane, flying over a dam during the mission Armored Assault. This same plane is seen at the end of the mission, parked at a Nod airfield. In Armored Assault, the Black Hand's leader, Gideon Ravishaw, ushered captured GDI scientists onto the plane. The plane left the area before GDI Commando Havoc could rescue them. This type of plane may have been Ravishaw's own personal transport, or it could have been for use by high-ranking officials within the Brotherhood. The plane had a unique design, with canards placed just behind the cockpit and the wings placed at the very back, the engines being located under the wings. When it came to fighter aircraft, the Brotherhood appeared to have some YF-22s in their arsenal, though this is based off a single cutscene that shows a Nod YF-22 being shot down by an unnamed GDI fighter. For helicopter gunships, the Brotherhood primarily used the AH-64 Apache. It was armed with an M230 chain gun, although the Tiberium Dawn manual states that it uses a, quote, high-speed Gatling cannon. Additionally, the helicopter was armed with Hellfire anti-tank missiles and Hydra 70 unguided rockets, all of which were located on pylons attached to the helicopter's wings. In terms of gameplay, only the chain gun is used. The Apache was highly effective at taking out infantry and ground vehicles. A squadron of Apaches could even do a decent amount of damage to structures. When it ran out of ammunition, the helicopter would return to base and land on a helipad where ground crews would rearm and refuel it. Damaged ones would land on the service depot for repairs. Apaches were lightly armored, and so could be quickly taken out by anti-air weapon systems. The RAH-66 Comanche saw limited use by the Brotherhood during the First Tiberium War. The Comanche was a stealth reconnaissance and attack helicopter, armed with an XM301 20mm rotary cannon. Hellfire AT missiles, or Hydra 70 rockets, were also located inside its internal bays. We mainly see this helicopter used by a Nod mercenary named Sakura Obata, as she tried to stop GDI Commando Havoc from finding and rescuing the captured GDI scientists. Sakura used the Comanche to shoot down a Nod C-130 that Havoc had stolen. She then tried to kill Havoc as he was trapped within a Nod base on a tropical island. Havoc was able to destroy Sakura's Comanche, and the helicopter went crashing into a volcano, causing it to erupt. The helicopter can also be seen flying around during the mission Rescue and Retribution, well before Havoc encountered Sakura. With the supposed death of Kane and GDI's victory at the end of the First War, the surviving but splintered elements of the Brotherhood were driven underground, both figuratively and literally. Only after Kane had returned, and began a new all-out war against GDI, did the organization put its smaller, but newer Air Force into action. The Harpy was the newest generation of combat helicopters in Nod's arsenal, but really, the Harpy was more useful as a light scout helicopter, as it was only armed with a couple of machine guns attached to small wings on each side of the copter's body. The Harpy had a pilot and co-pilot, and seemed to have enough room to carry up to 6 additional passengers. The Harpy's tail featured a Fenestron tail rotor. While the Harpy could use its machine guns to effectively take out infantry and light vehicles, its weak armor meant it could be easily brought down by anti-air weapon systems. The wrecks of Harpies can be seen strewn across the Tiberium-scarred landscape. Experiments with recovered ancient technology, that being the Tacitus, enabled Nod to develop an experimental VTOL aircraft codenamed the Banshee. The Banshee was a saucer-shaped fighter bomber, armed with twin plasma cannons that could decimate any unit or structure. It seemed to be either a single or twin-seat fighter, with 2 lights on the front, just below the cockpit. Each plasma cannon was located left and right of its respective lights. The 2 engines were located on the top back portion of the craft. While the Banshee is viewed in cutscenes engaging aircraft like GDI's Kodiak, in-game, the Banshee can only target ground units and buildings. Unlike the Harpy, the Banshee was well armored, able to engage targets while under heavy AA fire, and make it back to base when its plasma cannons needed to be recharged. The main prototype production facility for the Banshees was hidden by stealth generators. Narrowing it down to 2 possible locations in the Balkans, GDI General Solomon ordered Commander McNeil to find and destroy it. McNeil completed this task with the help of the Forgotten Mutants. Even though the facility was located and successfully destroyed, the Brotherhood continued to use their surviving Banshee aircraft throughout the war. Both the Banshee and Harpy would reload and refuel on helipads, capable of supporting 1 aircraft each. Both could receive repairs from Nod's robotic mobile repair vehicle, which would automatically detect and repair any damaged vehicles within its vicinity. The last aircraft that was briefly utilized by the Brotherhood was an alien warship that was recovered by General Vega. Contrary to popular belief, this, quote, Skrin ship was completely man-made. According to both Kane and Vega, it was developed by the Brotherhood of Nod at the end of the First Tiberium War, using data deciphered from the Tacitus.
The underground hangar you're about to enter houses an alien warship constructed at the end of the last war. The technology in this ship is more valuable to the Brotherhood than anything that has come before. Return it to me in Cairo.
What happened to the technology that you and Kane stole off that UFO?
King didn't steal it. Made it.
The ship was stored in an underground hangar below Temple Prime in Sarajevo, having survived the temple's destruction at the hands of GDI during the First War. General Vega was able to recover the aircraft, but he was unable to control it, causing the ship to crash in the southern US, along the New Mexico-Texas border. Both GDI and the Brotherhood raced to the crash site, with GDI securing the site and repelling Nod counterattacks in an effort to destroy the ship. The fate of this ship, unfortunately, remains a mystery. Kane emerged from stasis after healing from the injuries he sustained in his fight with McNeil. The Second Tiberium War was over, and the Brotherhood was once again fractured. With the help of his new AI, Legion, Kane spent the next 13 years reunifying and rebuilding the Brotherhood. In 2047, the Third Tiberium War between GDI and the Brotherhood broke out, and once again, new aircraft would be seen flying above the battlefields. For transportation, the Brotherhood used a new aircraft called the Carryall.
Carryall, ready to go.
The Brotherhood's Carryall seemed to be based off the original aircraft used by GDI during the Second Tiberium War, which was later replaced by the V-35 Ox. Like the original Carryall, the Nod version had 4 engines providing lift and thrust. Infantry would call in the craft using flares, then enter the large containers carried under the back portion of the Carryall. Thanks to its vertical takeoff and landing capabilities, the carryall could drop troops off almost anywhere on the battlefield. Shadow teams were the only infantry units that wouldn't make use of the aircraft, as they were equipped with gliders. Most Nod vehicles could be picked up by the carryall using a grapple on the belly of the aircraft. Heavier vehicles, like the Reckoner and Avatar, were the exceptions to the rule, as well as the MCV. There are some instances of the carryall transporting stealth and flame tanks in the campaign, though in skirmish or multiplayer modes, the aircraft is not capable of lifting them. This applies to Nod's harvesters as well. While slower in comparison to the V-35, the carryall was slightly more resilient to AA fire. Still, it was best for the aircraft to avoid such weapons, as it had no way of defending itself. A variant of the carryall that was used as a fast-moving heavy bomber was the Armageddon. It didn't have the 4 VTOL engines of the carryall, instead just having a couple of turbofans in its wings. A jet engine seemed to be attached to the tail of the plane, allowing it to fly swiftly over the battlefield. The Armageddon bomber would be called in by Nod commanders to deliver a variety of strikes and provide support drops on the battlefield. One of the most common of these was the mine drop. The Armageddon would fly over a designated location and drop a cluster of mines on the target. Any ground units that attempted to move through this field would be destroyed by the exploding mines. This is an effective area denial weapon that a Nod commander could use to defend their base, but vehicles like the Pitbull or Skrin Seeker tank could detect these mines and destroy them from a safe distance. Armageddon bombers in the Mark of Cain arsenal would drop magnetic mines. Instead of exploding when a vehicle runs over them, magnetic mines would erode the underside of the vehicle, where its armor was weakest. These mines had no effect on infantry though. The most devastating strike an Armageddon could perform was to drop a Tiberium vapor bomb over a designated target. The vapor bomb was an airburst weapon that would release Tiberium vapor into the air. Once this vapor was ignited, it caused a wide explosion that destroyed almost any units or structures caught in the middle of it. Weapons, the Armageddon was capable of seeding Tiberium near a Brotherhood base, providing much needed extra income. The cost of requesting this support was less in comparison to the amount of Tiberium it provided to the commander when harvested, especially if the Tiberium was allowed to spread. While the Armageddon bomber was fast, it was not heavily armored, and would sometimes be shot down before delivering its payload. An Armageddon was used by Cain to transport the liquid Tiberium bomb to Sarajevo. However, the Armageddon was shot down over Slovenia, and the bomb had to be recovered by Nod ground forces. The other heavy bomber used by the Brotherhood at this time was the Vertigo bomber.
Vertigo, flight check complete.
The Vertigo was a VTOL stealth bomber, which was constructed and deployed from an air tower. The air tower could hold up to 4 Vertigo bombers. If damaged, the bombers would be repaired by the drones flying around the control tower, overlooking the landing pads. At the base of the air tower was the entrance for ground personnel to enter and exit. If a Nod commander wanted more of these aircraft, he would need to construct a support air tower, which had 4 more platforms for Vertigo bombers to land and be repaired. As for the Vertigo itself, the plane may have had a crew of 5, a pilot, co-pilot, 2 weapon systems officers, and a tail gunner. The engines were attached to the back of the wings via 6 extensions. The plane had a twin tail with a gunner located in a glass canopy at the end of it. The tail gunner would protect the Vertigo from other aircraft, such as GDI's Firehawks. While slow-moving, the Vertigo utilized the latest in stealth technology, keeping it hidden until the moment it opened the bomb bay doors to deliver a single high-explosive bomb onto the target. Vertigos were excellent at destroying base structures, and could resist AA fire coming from GDI's batteries, so long as GDI had not upgraded them with tungsten shells. Vertigos could be upgraded to carry disruption pods, which would be delivered to the air tower, and then stored in containers located on an exterior platform at the lower part of the tower. The Vertigo bombers themselves would be upgraded with a sensor dish on top of the aircraft, an indication of them being equipped with these pods. The Vertigo flies over and drops the pod at a designated location. This pod generates a cloaking field that hides any Nod units or structures within its radius for a short time. Unlike the disruption tower, disruption pods would be hidden by their own cloaking field. Shortly after the Second Tiberium War, the Harpy was replaced with a more advanced aircraft called the Venom.
Venom craft ready for liftoff.
Now that the Brotherhood has deployed the Venom, GDI no longer has a monopoly on VTOL scout aircraft. The Venom is one up on the GDI Orca, however, since it can strike both air and ground targets. A Venom can engage ground targets, but can also blow Orcas right out of the sky. The Venom may have been based off the original Orca aircraft, which the Brotherhood managed to steal from a GDI base during the First Tiberium War. The Venom had a single pilot located in a bubble canopy at the front of the aircraft. Just below the canopy, at the nose of the craft, were its primary rapid-fire machine guns. It's important to note that the concept art for the Venom shows the machine guns being placed on the sides of the aircraft, instead of beneath the nose. The two rotating VTOL engines are located on each side of the Venom in the middle of its body, and each has a small wing attached to it. The aircraft also features a V-shaped tail. It uses 4 landing legs, with one below the tail, one below the cockpit behind the machine guns, and one on each of the craft's engines. The Venom was fast-moving, though lightly armored. It acted as a great scout that could pick off unprotected enemy units, especially infantry, with ease. The aircraft was highly versatile too. The machine guns could be upgraded with laser capacitors from the technology lab, increasing the damage it dealt to all enemy units and structures. Those Venoms that were in the Mark of Cain's arsenal were upgraded with supercharged particle beams, which are more effective than the standard lasers. The Black Hand, however, did not make use of Venoms, Vertigos, or even Carriols. Venoms could be upgraded with signature generators, which could be requisitioned at the air tower and placed on an exterior platform connected to it. The generators themselves would be mounted on the top of the Venom, just behind the cockpit. When activated, these generators emit a large radar signature. This tricks enemy radars into displaying a small squadron of Venoms as if it were a large attack force. This deception tactic could cause enemy commanders to divert much of their own forces to intercept the Venoms. By the time the enemy commander realizes their mistake, the non-commander may have already achieved his actual objective against his adversary. Finally, Venoms were equipped with mirrors on their bellies. When used in tandem with a beam cannon, these mirrors would bounce the beam from one Venom to another. The last Venom in the chain would have its reflector oriented toward an enemy unit or structure, which would be hit by the beam, damaging and eventually destroying the target. This tactic allowed the beam cannon to destroy targets from a great distance, well behind the front lines. Consequently, the Venoms could not move or fire their own weapons while performing this maneuver. Just like the Brotherhood's navy, it's unknown how much of the faction's air force was still left intact in the aftermath of the Third Tiberium War. But with unfettered access to Threshold 19, and the Tacitus back in the hands of Cain, the Brotherhood has all they need to rebuild and upgrade their air force, should they require it in future conflicts.